Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good. Welcome everyone to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It's going to be a fantastic show today. We have Artemaeus Treadwell joining us, talking some paranormal because he's an experiencer. We just have an experiencer here today talking about experiences, which should be awesome. Let's go ahead and get ready to see who has come on in first, courtesy of Race Fan. Looks like we have Kitty Catty Whack with the gold tonight. We have T-Bone with the silver, and then we have Roger Murray with the bronze. Wow, okay, definitely different lineup here. Appreciate it, Kitty Catty Whack. Thanks for coming on in. T-Bone as well. Thanks for showing up here tonight. Roger Murray dropping some knowledge on this May 18th, 1955 to 2025, 70th anniversary Flying Saucer Review First Magazine. Subject UFO government disclosure. Thanks for keeping us informed, Roger Murray, as always. And also, thanks for coming on in here tonight. We do appreciate you showing up. Who else do we have? Bill WD-40 getting us lubed up and ready for the show, of course. We got Robert Lamoth Jr. Appreciate you coming on in, Robert Lamoth Jr. Thanks for coming in early, bright and early. We got Fast Hemi. Fast Hemi, that says it all. The name says it all. Thanks for coming on in. Thanks for being so expeditious with your presence here tonight. Also, who else do we have here? Moving down the list, get as many as we can, as we always try to do each and every night, because you matter. We do appreciate you guys coming in before the show. Who else do we have? Lil Cam 51 present. That's what I'm talking about. Thanks for coming in, Lil Cam 51. Eternity Eternal. Thanks for showing up here tonight. Creepypasta 560. Thanks for showing on up tonight. Who else do we have out here? J True Seeker Sighting. J True Seeker Sighting. Thanks for showing on up here tonight. We appreciate you showing up here. Who else do we have? Caged on the Inside. Okay, thanks for coming on in. Frankie B as well. Thanks for showing up here. Amanda's Crazy Life Channel. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. So thanks for showing on up here. Who else do we have? Algaray. Hey, Algaray. Thanks for coming on in. Operation Shutdown. Thanks for coming in. General Sorrow seems to be a new name. Wow. Awesome stuff. If so, thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing on up. I have a little spill I'll give later in the show. Lacey Blue, thanks for coming on in as well. Let's see, who else do we have? Can we get to the end before we start the podcast side? Alexandria Lesperance, thanks for coming on in, watching from bed. Nice place to watch from. Looks like we will. We got through. Let's go ahead and start the podcast side of this. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight will be an awesome show. We have Artemaeus Treadwell joining us, who is a UFO contact experiencer for hours 1 and 2. We also have Drew Banky stepping in with the After Hours wrap up in hour 3, along with Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries. Once again, awesome show. Let's get ready to go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight, we'll be broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X, on Instagram, at Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is still spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with SOR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumble Fits All, and oh so much more. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight. Once again, we have Artemaeus Treadwell, who is a UFO extraterrestrial experiencer, going to join us here tonight for hours 1 and 2, along with Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries, and Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up in hour 3. Action-packed, jam-packed show. Make sure you don't go anywhere as we get ready to jump right on into the conversation and bring in our guest, Artemaeus Treadwell. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, great. I can hear you. Okay,
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, no problem, man. Glad to have you here. Definitely, looking forward to the conversation. We get into all sorts of stuff here on the After Hours radio show, all parts of the phenomena, and everybody has a unique story. So I always start out, especially when it's first interview, we want to know more about you. So kind of what led you down this road to getting to where you are today, leading up to your first experience?
Yeah, no, that's a great start. So I would say that I was just the average person prior to my first experience, and it all happened because of a relationship, which now I am married to said relationship. And Tillie is what some people might call an intermediary. So somebody who has, I guess, extrasensory perception, ability to perhaps commune with other beings. So the other side of the veil, perhaps different quantum realities, however you might want to refer to it. And after getting involved with her, I started having a lot more paranormal experiences. And if it wasn't just for that, it really changed my entire perspective on life. And furthermore, a lot of stories that I hear people talking about when it comes to the paranormal, it's often this good versus evil, light versus dark. They will label demons and other beings as being entities that are out to get us, that are out to destroy us, that are, in some way, shape, or form against us. And what I've been finding with the vast majority of my experiences with the paranormal thus far is that the way that these entities interact with us has pretty much exclusively to do with how we conduct ourselves, our own, psychology, our inner world. And the more that I have learned about myself, the more objective I've become, the more in control of my nervous system, I guess you could say, my fight or flight response, the more introspective I've become, the far more harmonious my interactions have been. And having Tillie able to communicate with, I believe, having to communicate with these other beings, being able to, and then bring me this entirely different perspective, again, has completely changed my outlook on life, on what reality is, what control I have within myself and within my environment, and when it comes to interacting with these other beings. So I've got plenty stories to share that could demonstrate that in various ways. I don't know if there's any particular story that you'd like to start with.
Well, the one that always, kind of brings it home for a lot of people is the initial experience. The one that got you to say, "There's more to this."
Sure. Yeah. And that tale begins with online dating, which might seem kind of strange to some people. But again, I met Tillie. We actually were both of us looking to get into a relationship, and we met through online dating. And we had really good rapport in messages going back and forth, and thought, okay, this would be time to take it towards an in-person date. And I noticed that as soon as I saw her, very bubbly, very bouncy, just seemed like a super happy person. Looking back on it, I realized that my reaction to her was definitely a reflection of my own inner garbage. But at the time, the thought that came into my mind was, God, nobody can be that happy. And that sounds like like a total jerk thing to say, because it is. And it wasn't, the date went kind of terribly, mostly because of me, just trying to bumble by. But we ended up in a mall, a shopping mall, having a actually pretty decent conversation finally when I got over myself. And we got locked in the mall, actually. The security didn't know that we were even there, which was strange because we weren't trying to hide anywhere in a store. We were walking out in the open and, discovered that we had been locked in when we went to go leave. And so we managed to finally get out. And we'd been on this date for, I don't know, at that point, probably the better part of about 4 hours. And when we got to the car, getting ready to take her home, she decided to reveal to me what I can only describe as my own soul essence, my own deepest soul, my character, my persona, whatever you want to call it. And it was a description of what I felt was me in such a way that nobody else could have possibly known. It wasn't a good cold reading, like how some, faux psychics can do. They can read some body language and, gather enough information about you to do a good cold read. She pulled this information from what I can only assume was just the other side of the veil. Wherever we come from, the source energy that we are, except my own particular brand of that, whatever that is. And I hadn't uttered anything, like that to anyone, much less written it down anywhere. But she was able to articulate that so well and kind of dive into even some very vague past life experiences that I didn't even realize that I had, but at that point were very real to me and still are. And because she did that, because she was able to reach in and grab that soul essence and then reflect it back to me, I had never had anything like that happen in my life. And up to that point, really and realized that nobody ever knew me. And probably a lot of people don't actually know each other on that kind of level, because here we are on this planet with masks and characters and personas that we play, a lot of our trauma, our baggage, whatever it is. But she reached in there and said, I see this and I love this about you. And it was that sort of intimacy, that sort of loving and belonging that I think people are often searching for. You know, we're always searching for it in other people and our partners. I believe that, you know, the first step is to know that and love that about yourself. That aside, she saw it, she told me, and loved it nonetheless. And I was immediately at that point, okay, something is going on here that, you know, she is tapping into, that I have no answer for how it happened. And she gave me a further validation, uh, something in my current reality, to say, okay, if you didn't believe that, then I'm telling you that there is this being, this entity, who's presenting itself as a Native American chieftain, who's around you, who's near you, who is here to help, you know, facilitate this, you know, relationship, because we have a soul contract, we have something that we came here to do. And she described, you know, this Native American chieftain, and despite the fact that I don't have a drop of that in my lineage, from what I understand, there had been, well, my father, first of all, loved to collect Native American paraphernalia. And we had been gifted a portrait of a Native American chieftain, and she described this individual to a T, you know, down to the headdress, the pose, the color of the feathers, I mean, everything. And this portrait had been hanging outside of my bedroom wall for, you know, all throughout my adolescent years. And she'd never been, obviously, to my house at that point, so she kind of hit me with that 1-2 punch at that point, and my skepticism, my cynicism, you know, all of that that I had built up to that point in my life just completely, you know, fell away. Because when somebody sees you on that kind of level, you can't hide anymore. There are no secrets anymore, you know. So it's time to have a come to Jesus moment, in my opinion, and really start to get down and do the work. And so that was the capturing moment, which I think needed to happen for all of the things that would follow, all of the paranormal experiences, and then the introduction to some very novel ideas and different perspectives that a lot of people don't seem to hold, again, about, you know, other beings and paranormal, this other side of the veil. And so things calmed down for a little while. It was a few years before anything else really strange happened. But when we moved to Florida, which I don't know if anybody knows much about Florida, but it is a hotbed for paranormal activity. I don't know if it's the vibration of the land or what have you, but that's when some of the activities really started ramping up. And I think by that point, I had started to do some of my own inner work, the shadow work. If anybody's familiar with, you know, Carl Jung and psychotherapy and any, well, therapy in general, that's the kind of thing that would be encouraged for somebody to do. Go introspective, look within, look and see what are your schemas, what kind of childhood traumas do you have. Let's work through some of those, challenge some of those, heal some of those, so that you can be a more balanced person. At least that's the goal. So I'd gone a couple of years into that. And when we got to Florida, my first major, like, hold up, there's no way that this could have been mistaken for something else event occurred. And it was something going missing and then reappearing in a place that would have been impossible for either me or my wife at the time, Tillie, she was recently my wife, um, to have done ourselves. And it was my cell phone, strangely. I lost it, couldn't find it. And, you know, you go through all the usual places. You start flipping up the sheets on the bed, you know, you're looking at all the drawers, couch cushions. You know, we went all throughout the house, every room. I start looking in some odd places, the fridge, you know, at wherever that I thought I might have been. And it wasn't a very long time period of time that it was missing. But after having completely ripped apart our bed, I went back to the bed, and I'm, you know, feeling over the top of it. Just, you know, again, you start going back over places that you've already looked. And sure enough, my phone had somehow managed to find itself underneath the fitted sheet, which I hadn't actually removed that portion, but I had gone over the whole bed, you know, checking to make sure. But there it was, sitting plainly on, you know, my side of the bed, but underneath that fitted sheet. And Tillie's not the kind of person to play pranks. she definitely looks for opportunities to prove that, oh, hey, here's, an example of something, so that you can see that I didn't do anything. This is, this is real. And at that moment, doing that calculation in my head, okay, there's no possible way that I could have missed this, and that it could have somehow gotten refolded back under the sheet. That, in that period of time, I started to learn about some of these quantum experiences that people have, or the, examples potentially of things going in and out of different quantum realities. And I firmly believe that that is precisely what happened with my phone in that particular instance, that it disappeared and then reappeared in a similar spot to where it was, but just enough different that it couldn't have been anything else. So that's the first major experience.
That's pretty bananas, but I know exactly what you were talking about. And I've thought often, I'm like, okay, is this something I could put within the phenomena? Because it's weird, it's definitely strange, and it's more, it feels like it's more than me, overlooking something as I'm shuffling through things. It's like there's too many times where
Mhm.
that exact situation has happened. And then you just calm down for a minute, give it a little bit of time, and it pops right up right where you looked anyway. Yeah,
Right.
very, very strange.
Sure.
So I think that's a very powerful moment, though. Whenever you have whenever anyone has that moment where they have that realization that there's more to this, just that feeling that you have. How did you feel? Like, how did you walk away from Tillie, giving you all this information about things she couldn't have known about? Because I know how I felt. I hosted a couple psychics, and they said things that were just like, how could you have known that? So I know the feeling, but if you could describe how you felt.
Sure. Yeah. And for me, I mean, I realize that people can have a large array of responses to that, ranging from, outrage to fear to, for me, it was relief. And I know maybe that sounds kind of strange to people, but the way that I grew up was largely devoid of emotional intelligence. And I don't say that, to be nasty about my parents. I love them both. I think they did as good a job as they possibly could. But the ability to actually see and be seen was kind of lacking. They tried, but my father is a military man, and he's got a lot to process himself. And my mother was very, very young when I was born, so she was kind of a kid herself. And so to have someone finally be able to see me, recognize me, and then accept me for who I was all the way down at that core level was such a relief. And I felt instantly connected as a result. And so from that point on, rather than perhaps being afraid of what might come, it sort of laid the groundwork for being able to accept things that maybe would seem more strange, or that I might have otherwise been afraid of, because there was somebody there who understood it and who could actually help me through it.
Mm,
So I feel like that's a very different experience than what a lot of people have. And I don't discount how lucky I am in that way,
yeah.
because it does seem different, very novel. So
Yeah, it's always great when you have someone there that can kind of relate to what you're going through and also back you up. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people out there don't have that. They have the exact opposite. Someone who won't listen to strange accounts and occurrences and acts just like a typical skeptic. And it's good to have that within your circle. So that's awesome to hear. Looking at that, what were some of the things that you went through? Were they all paranormal? Did you have extraterrestrial, cryptid? Like, what are the things that you kind of experienced over time?
yeah, so gosh, I mean, I've had a dash of just about everything. I've had experiences with mimics. I've had experiences with what some people would call dark entities. I've had even more appearing and reappearing objects. Uh, I've had instances where arguments between Tillie and I have resulted in electrical anomalies, like half of the house, the electrical circuits being blown out and having to have those worked on and replaced. I've had Egyptian gods speak to me in the dream state, which is for me where a lot of the activity tends to take place. My own personal theory on that being that my ego, my human avatar, this default mode network that my brain operates in most of the time is so strong that the only time I'm typically able to be reached is in that dream state or in a different brainwave state where anybody can experience more paranormal activity because they're on quite literally that frequency. So for me, a lot of it tends to happen in that dream state as a result. Trying to work on having it happen more in the other brainwave states, but that's more of a meditative practice and more, I think, in doing work to calm the nervous system, that sympathetic fight flight response that I think is so core to the human experience because we are all animals. We all have that within us, and it's a knee jerk response that most of us can't control. It just happens as a mechanism for survival here on this planet, in this plane, and there's nothing to be ashamed of there. It's just, in my opinion, something to be aware of. And as I've kind of discovered, not being aware of that, not being in control of that, very much dictates the type of paranormal interactions that you can have. So, for example, um, the one dark entity experience that I had, only one, was again in a dream state. I was sitting, at least in this dream state, I'm imagining myself sitting up in bed, reading or looking ahead at something. And off to my left, in this dream state, there's a mirror on the wall. And I can see out of the corner of my eye that something within the mirror moves. And I know because I'm looking straight ahead that there's nothing that could have caused that reflection, that whatever made that movement in the mirror is behind the mirror, which for anybody who has a pretty strong sympathetic nervous system response, aka fight, flight, freeze, usually the hair on the back of your neck is going to stand up because immediately that goes, something doesn't calculate there because there should be something in front of the mirror if there's something moving in the mirror. And so in that dream state, I already know I'm feeling nervous because something's not right. And I turn to look at the mirror, and coming headfirst through the mirror, something very, very large and very, very dark. And I immediately, I have no control over this response, but immediately I start screaming in this dream state. And I have such an intense feeling of fear that I don't know if anybody has genuinely been in fear of their life or terrified to their absolute core, but I've never had that in my life, with the exception of an ayahuasca experience that I had. We can get to that later. But this was an uncontrolled fear provocation within me from this entity. And I hardly got, 2 seconds into seeing it, just knowing that it was large and that whatever it was tripped all of those fear sensors in me simultaneously. And up to that point, I'd had some experience with lucid dreaming and controlling that. So I knew how to wake myself up from it. And I did very, very quickly because I did not want to stick around for whatever interaction that was about to be. And when I told Tillie about it, she said, "You know what? I know exactly what that's about." I was actually speaking about this particular entity to one of my colleagues,
Hold
talking
right
to
there.
them about, oh,
Hold
yeah,
right
sure.
there, Artemaeus. We're going to go ahead and jump into our first break of the night. Artemaeus is getting deep. He's going deep already, right off the bat, 30 minutes in, right here on the Spaced Out Radio After Hours radio show. Guys, don't go anywhere. There's a lot more to come. we are clear, and we'll pick that back up on the with the lucid dreaming when we come back.
Cool. Yeah.
Also, this 5 minutes, so we're still on air. Everybody can see and hear us right now. I'm going to go in here and talk to the people that I missed coming in earlier.
Sure.
And if you need to grab a drink or anything, let me know. You can step away.
I was going to say, I'm good to be here. I brought my drink with me, but thank you for reminding me.
Definitely. And who has stepped on in since we started the show? Hillbilly Herb. Appreciate you showing up. Scott Rosen, also, thanks for coming in. Who else snuck in? T-Bone, thanks for the super chat as well. For sure, we do appreciate your love and support of the show here tonight. Let's see. JMJ12. Thanks for coming on in. Undead Jed. Okay, I like that. Thanks for coming on in, Undead Jed. I appreciate you. And let's see who else snuck in here. Truth Wave Energy Meditation. That's a mouthful and says a lot. So do appreciate you coming on in here tonight. Who else showing on up? Let's see. John Bustamante. Appreciate you coming on in. Thanks for showing up here. Matt Gudka slid in here. Appreciate you showing on up. Let's see. Izzy Beth. Let me just make sure. I think we are good there. Okay, yeah, and just for anyone who's in here for the first time, kind of how this goes, you have tuned into the Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We broadcast Saturdays and Sundays from 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. Pacific. Then you have Dave Scott running the Woo Train Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. until midnight. You have Lee and Tim James with Element 115 on Fridays from 8 p.m. until 9. And I hear there's another show coming up here soon. Not too sure if it's been fully confirmed or announced, but a lot of stuff going on is the point here. A lot of stuff going on right here on Space Out Radio, 7 days a week. You can come here and find something to do. So make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, notification bell, let you know next time we drop a video or when we go live, as we often do. So do appreciate you. Mark Eddy is in the building here for the first time this minute. Appreciate you showing on up here, Mark Eddy. Thanks for coming in tonight. Alan Marcus as well. Thank you for coming on in. Alan wants to know, do you have social media to share here?
Well, we have a YouTube channel currently, which is The Weird Walk Home.
Yes, The Weird Walk Home. Make sure you guys go and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Show some support for the channel as well. We will be bringing that up again later on in the show. And let's see. Also, we do we ask questions in the second hour, but I do, if you happen to have any earlier, make sure you go ahead and put them in caps. And if I see them, I'll tag them, and we'll save them for the back half of the second hour. Let's see. And I think that's about it. That's all I need to let you know. AJ, thanks for coming on in tonight. All right. And what part of the country are you in, Artemaeus?
Down in Florida, Central Florida.
Oh, you're in Florida. Okay.
Yep,
Awesome.
still there.
Awesome stuff. So weather has to be good right now, or is it? this time of year? What do you get?
It's actually it's a lot hotter than what it normally is. We've been in the 90s, so yeah, I think summer is definitely here.
Do you get the severe weather this time of year, or is that past?
Well, it's usually right about another couple of weeks. We'll start seeing thunderstorms every day. Technically, hurricane season is very quickly approaching. About that same time, it goes all the way through beginning of November, but we usually don't see the severe stuff until September, sometimes October. So,
Okay.
yep, it's coming. Mm,
Yeah, well, yeah, that's not nice, but yeah,
right.
it's definitely a destination place. I'm in California, so it's
Mm,
another destination place as well. We got about 5 seconds here as we're coming back from radio right about now.
awesome.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio and After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We have Artemaeus Treadwell in the building, experiencer of many things under the phenomenon. We're going to go ahead and talk about those experiences and more here tonight, so make sure you don't go anywhere. Obviously, if you miss any of the conversation, you can just hop in the archive. It's absolutely free. YouTube.com/the Spaced Out Radio. Catch up on what you missed as we get back in the conversation with Artemaeus. You were going into talking about lucid dreaming. If you want to go ahead and pick up from there.
Yeah, so I was saying that Tillie, after I had told Tillie about the dark entity experience, she said that she knew what that was about, that she had been speaking with a colleague about this particular dark entity. And what she didn't realize was that that was not wanted or appreciated by this particular entity, that they prefer to have their business left unsaid. And so Tillie, being the neurodivergent person that she is, the intermediary that she is, had a conversation with this entity. And the way that it works, from what I understand from the non human person psychology perspective, is that things are very cut and dry. It's very tit for tat, it's very contractual, it's very objective. And when there's an agreement, that agreement stands in perpetuity until both or all parties involved come together to make arrangements that are agreeable to everybody in the party. And so she went and had a discussion with this individual, found out what the problem was, apologized profusely, didn't know that it was an issue. There was an arrangement made. There were 3 rules that were meant to be followed. And as long as those were followed, that I would not experience anything like that ever again. And it's been several years, and there has not been even a remotely a negative experience like that that I've had. In fact, everything that I've had to this point seems to have been positive, considerate, if not some of it, maybe not necessarily pleasant on my end, but as I've come to understand, perhaps necessary. We could talk about that set of experiences as well. And so that's kind of why I've developed this perspective now that seems to be at odds with like what a lot of people talk about when it comes to beings that are against humans or out to get us, or any of those you know constant fighting, warlike tribalistic perspectives, which humans tend to have a lot of, I've noticed, which makes sense. This is a planet where it's survival of the fittest. I get it. Those set of parameters here exist for a reason. And I'm not saying that we should just drop them without abandon. It's just something I think to be aware of, and maybe being a little bit more objective, a little bit more open minded, for me, has certainly done nothing but positive things from my experiences with the firm. So if you have anything that you wanted to comment on that before I move on to the next story.
Yeah, no, actually, I wanted to actually take a step back at a 30,000-foot view of your thoughts or your perception of the phenomena as it relates to humanity. How do
Mhm.
you see it? And because so there's a lot of people that feel like it's all interconnected and various other things. How do you perceive it?
Yeah, I do believe it's 100% interconnected, and that there are laws of the universe that are not as complex as people might make them out to be. And that is that there is no good and evil. There are only characters and parts and experiences. And so, and everything is tit for tat. So whether we are conscious of it or in conscious agreement of it or not, because I think a lot of humanity is still very unconscious and inconscientious. But again, that's not to say anything disparaging or derogatory about people. There are just different stories, different levels of awareness for different experiences, different paths. That's all that it is for me. And so the 30,000-foot view for me is that the any other entity is just, playing another part of the story. So for example, or playing another part of the experience. So for example, any entities that claim themselves to be religious entities, like Jesus or Buddha, or any other religious entity coming to speak to people. I think it's just entities that are playing that character so that they can interact with humans on a level that is wanted and or pleasing for them, or perhaps to accomplish a particular goal. So in that way, it is manipulation. The counter to that is, if you don't want to be manipulated, then rather than having an objective feeling about whether or not something is good or bad, look at just what it is. Okay, well, if someone has a need to worship, then an entity who has a need to be worshipped will show up. It's just that simple for me, anyway. And that's not to say that worshiping is a bad thing either. Once again, there is no, good or evil. It's just, if someone has a need, then there will be something to fill it, one way or the other. And that applies to everything. That is, I guess, the light and the dark, the magnetism, things will be drawn to one another in that way. So exorcism, perhaps there's a lot going on there, as an example, is something that I believe is a phenomena because people leave themselves vulnerable, open to being manipulated. And then the people who are coming to do the exorcism, or think that they're doing the exorcism, have they think that they are fulfilling a particular role. And then this other entity is also, that's doing the possessing or the manipulating, is gaining something out of it as well. And if we think about it like energetic food, then just like our own food chain here, where we have, wolves that eat rabbits or deer or, whatever, that yes, some people are on an emotional or psychological sense serving as food. But we only demonize the wolf when we're the shepherd with the sheep. But the wolf has a family, the wolf has needs, looking at it more from that objective perspective, everybody needs something and everybody fulfills that. So if you don't want to play that game, then there are things that you can do to take personal responsibility to not be part of that food chain, to not be part of that manipulation. And things like, again, being objective, taking personal responsibility, um, and critical thinking. That's a big one. And just taking care of all your own garbage, really, taking responsibility for it. It will go a long way to keeping yourself from being vulnerable to those sorts of encounters. And then the types of encounters that you may end up having instead might be more what you might consider positively interactive. So I've had instances where I've seen, one time I did see a little brownie, a little faerie, and it was a quick, sighting, but no mistaking that I did see her, I think, feminine looking figure. Not threatening in any way. I've seen seemingly planets or stars, migrate in the sky and then go right back to where they were, at the same time as seeing some what seemed to be sentient light, um, where it was this like a pretzel rod. Basically, it wasn't very big, maybe a foot or so in length, and it was just hovering there right outside the campfire where Tillie and I were sitting one night. And as it saw me, it just kind of ducked behind a shed very slowly. But when you see some of these things, some people, when they have paranormal experiences, they know that it's different from a trick of their mind, or maybe just they misread something, because they get a very distinct feeling from it. And I do think that all of us are connected to that source energy, as you said, and as some people have said, everything's interconnected. And when you're in that particular frequency, that brain space to experience it, you'll be able to communicate essentially, in a sense, telepathically with these things. And because that is how they communicate. They don't need words like we do. It's all done in the mind. And when you have those experiences, you get that very distinct feeling. And like I said, with that rod of light, it not only had just a depth and a richness to it that I'd never seen in any other kind of light to that point, but I also got, again, the impression of, oh, I've been seen, nothing to see here. I'm just gonna go behind the shed and disappear. It was just a watching sort of thing. And a lot of the encounters that I get now are more just curious, watchful encounters, things that I catch that are just, I get the impression that they're just watching, they're just curious, which, I mean, I would be too. Humans are curious things, in my opinion.
Now, when you say watching from where would you, if you had to guess, where, where, and who?
Yeah, sure. Who is kind of difficult to say. I say entities, other beings, because I believe many of them have the ability to shift into whatever they wish to be perceived as, or whether that's for the comfort of the thing that they're viewing, or just because that's their particular expression at the moment. Imagine how cool it would be, I think, for us if we could just snap our fingers and change the way that we looked at any given moment, like a pair of clothes, just to express what we were feeling, on that particular day. I think that's what some of these beings might sometimes be doing, or just expressing their, core essence, which in some cases is just pure light. Um, but yeah, where they are is a little bit more difficult. I believe in the quantum reality where everything is happening all simultaneously. So there are different realities that can be jumped from and to. Um, but I think that's probably what they're doing, is just coming in and out of different quantum realities. Kind of like how I think the Mandela effect happens, where we're perceiving little bits and pieces of other realities that are happening, all simultaneously at the same time. And we're just, there's that frequency tuner within the brain that's, bouncing between some of them, sometimes some vacillating almost. So, yeah.
Okay, you also talk about veil, and I have some ideas of what I think of these things, and I've heard different people's explanations. But from you, when you talk about veil, what do you perceive to be on the other side? What's there? And the reason why I ask that is because I've had this thought experiment of okay, maybe what we're experiencing in the physical human experience is to prepare us for whatever is on the other side of the veil. So essentially, like we're in a pupa stage, preparing to become these butterflies over in this, we're on the other side of the veil. How do
Yeah.
you see the other side? What if you had to describe it? What How would you do that?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So there are different dimensions people talk about. At least I think, anyway, there are different dimensions: 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 9D, and probably up to the infinite. And there are, I think, the souls, each that we are going through different experiences to sort of be able to get to the levels of the higher dimensions. And that's not to say that there's a hierarchy, that, any one dimension is better than the other, or that they necessarily go in any particular order. That doesn't have to be the case. But that the other side, so kind of step back from, okay, so we have different dimensions, and that we are experiencing, what we're doing as souls is going through different experiences to sort of continue to build on those different, so that we can reach and perceive those different dimensions. But at least in this particular reality, the one where I am perceiving, talking to you, that the veil that we have, that we are on one side of, is just what, because I'm my background is more evolutionary biology. So the veil, when I talk about it, that we're behind on one side of would be our default mode network, the part of our brain that sort of corrals us like blinders and gets us on autopilot essentially. And what that default mode network is designed to do is to supposedly make our lives easier by taking our experiences and saying, okay, this didn't kill me, let's do this again. This helped me, let's do this again, and continue to build on that. But there are so many experiences out there that we could have had differently, but our brains will start to narrow and take us, further and further down, the same path if we don't conscientiously, reel that back, which is probably why children have so many novel ideas, things that come out of their mouth. Sometimes you think, wow, that was profound. I don't know how you did that as a kid. Or experiences that they talk about from some other life, or an invisible friend that they have that seems a little bit too real sometimes. That's because they don't have that really really narrow default mode network that adults tend to get. And so we can, through things like therapy and meditation and working on our nervous system, we can actually peel back that default mode network and start to perceive things on the other side of that veil. So in some ways, the veil is created by our own minds. I do believe that's purposeful, not necessarily like a matrix or something that we're trapped in. I don't have that negative spin on it. But what's on the other side of that veil are things, I think this scratching the surface of it would be something like what people experience when they're on an ayahuasca trip, for example, when their default mode network goes offline from things like DMT, psilocybin, LSD. My personal theory is that the default mode network, the veil fades away, and that what some people experience on the other side of that is just a glimpse. It's just a tiny glimpse of what's out there in the higher dimensional realms. And it's purposeful that we have this veil because there are stories and experiences that we could only have if these set of parameters were in place. And what comes to mind is some philosophy by Alan Watts, which I absolutely loved. This part of his musings was that he surmised that we're all just a piece of God. So we're all interconnected. We're all essentially God. And if God can do anything, have anything at any point in time, it might get a little, well, challengeless and maybe even boring, dare say. And in order to have different experiences, what you might do then is put yourself in a situation where you lack some control and you lack a lot of the omniscience that you had. So you would have to bumble through some of these experiences, and you would be forced to have certain emotional experiences because of the ego that you develop here. And that's a very novel thing that, from what I understand, non-human people and non-human entities don't have that. It's actually very, well, in my opinion, it's pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? It's there's not much novelty to it, not much story. It's just stable. And people would think, oh God, I would kill for stable, like that's just my every day is a struggle and it's chaos. I get that, really, I do. What's interesting that I found though is that when we're no longer addicted to stories and drama and this good versus evil battle and war and everything, when you step back from all that and take all of that away, there's nothing but peace and calm. And some people might go, this feels weird because I'm so used to the drama and the confusion and whatnot. And I totally got that for a period of time. I thought I must have been doing something wrong. I must have been slipping into a depression, losing my mind, whatever it was. But it wasn't. It was just finally peace, which again is something that I think is on the other side of the veil in why some of these entities are curious about this and why a lot of us as souls come here, because it is an extremely novel experience.
Yeah, and I think when you say veil, as you were explaining that there, it almost sounds like a sensory suppression in the way that you described it. Whereas when I say veil, I'm more so talking about the wall between, like, for instance, us and the afterlife, right? And where they exist, and then where we exist. And then I've also thought about this as well. So maybe that veil is is not a veil at all, and maybe it is more sensory suppression, and then just moments where we're able to tap into those abilities and actually see things outside of our spectrum that we would normally, be able to focus in on. So, could it be a little bit of both, where they all live within the same realm or dimension full time, but our sensory suppression doesn't allow us to always see them? Or do they actually live on the other side of this realm, of this veil? So it's kind of where I'm at with it as I think through it. I don't know, what would you say to that?
I would say you're probably spot on. It's a little bit of both, honestly, and it can be that, um, really in any reality, because there's reality is what you perceive, what you make of it. So that means there are infinite possibilities. So it is, I think, a little bit of that, sensory suppression, and then also just entities existing on different dimensional planes. So, however you get there, it could be more of this, soul progression, more learning and understanding, and that's, I guess, what maybe some religions like, see the Hindu religion, you're talking about, nirvana and stairway to heaven and those sorts of things, that it may have to do with, the more experiences you have, the more dimensions you have access to, and then you have that ability to be within dimensions that, only other beings who are on that dimension can be there, and then go to others, and then others where, like here, where we have beings that are kind of popping in and out, but also could just be here all the time, and it's a matter of our perception. Like I said, with the ayahuasca experience, personally, I believe we are just finally seeing what's all around us all the time in a particular dimension. We've just taken that governor off of our brain that suppresses that sensory experience. I don't think it's hallucination at all.
Yeah, and there's a thing. If you say ayahuasca more than 6 times on this show, you have to buy Drew Banky a drink. That's a joke, but he's a really big ayahuasca guy. He does
Yeah.
ceremonies and things of that nature. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the wrap up tonight. But if you had to, so I guess what I wanted to do is kind of get into some more of your experiences, some of the things that you have gone through.
Yep.
So I guess in relation, let's just start with paranormals. We only have about a minute and a half left. If you can give us a quick paranormal experience that you had.
Yeah, quick. So I have had another in a dream state where I was walking by a shop, was beckoned inside, led down a set of stairs to an open theater where there was screening some film that had some priests and priestess and Egyptian gods that were speaking. And I'm sitting at the back of the theater, and this entity turns towards me and actually starts moving through the screen and then coming towards me to deliver a message to me, which at the time I didn't understand exactly what it was about, but apparently I was meant to deliver this message to Tillie. She was having some trouble with things that she had been considering for herself, what direction she should take in her life, and she hadn't yet told me. And because this god came and spoke to me in this dream that I remembered when I woke up, and those tend to be the ones that I believe are coming from, again, this other side of the veil. It's not just garbage that our brain has been, vomiting throughout the day or needing to work through. That this message that I delivered when I told Tillie, waking up the next morning, she said, "Yep, that makes perfect sense." And it's interesting that it would be this particular Egyptian god. It was the crocodile god, Sobek, which I didn't know anything about.
Let's hold
And
right there,
yep.
Artemaeus. We'll hold right there with the crocodile god. As we get ready to go into the break at the top of the hour, guys, we'll be back right after this. Make sure if you go anywhere that you come right back. See you in a minute.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, Artemaeus, we're clear, and we'll pick that story up on when we come back from break. We're off camera for the next 5 minutes, so I'll see you in a minute.
You got it.
All right. right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2. Me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're bringing back our guest for tonight here, Artemaeus Treadwell. Hey, Artemaeus. We will be getting back to the show here in about 15 seconds, and then we can pick right up with your story.
Cool. Yep.
All right, everybody, this is the hour for questions as well. I've been marking some that's come through. Please make sure they're all in caps, and I'll tag them, and we'll ask them. Last 30 minutes. Here we go. All right, everyone, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 2. Back with our guest, Artemaeus Treadwell. Getting into some real good stuff, talking all phenomena, all aspects, all strangest parts of the phenomena. Make sure you get your questions in. This half hour is going to be awesome. Also, if you missed anything that we've talked about thus far, once again, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You can hop in archives that are absolutely free. As we go ahead and jump right back into your story, Artemaeus, you can start wherever you would like.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about how that Egyptian god was delivering a message to me in the dream state, which I had some clairvoyant dreams prior to getting involved with Tillie, so that was really the extent of my paranormal experiences to that point. Like I said, most of those experiences tend to be in my dream state, but yeah, so he delivered this message that I had no idea what it was about because she hadn't discussed with me anything that was relevant to that. But when I told her, she said, "Yep, that's pretty much on point for what I needed to hear." And it was kind of validation for me because for as little as I know about Egyptian mythology, I didn't actually know that there was a crocodile-headed god. And so for the individual to present itself in that way was interesting to me because my kind of personal I guess the way that I conduct myself when it comes to the paranormal is that I don't do research into it because when I have paranormal experiences, I want them not to be influenced by anything else that anybody might say about it. So I don't look into stories about, the Fae or Bigfoot or UFOs or any of that. In fact, in my day-to-day life, I have nothing to do with any of it because, for one, I have other passions and things that I like to pursue. But for two, for me, it's a way to sort of experiment with the potential validity of any of these experiences like people who here's time number like what 5 talking about ayahuasca, but like people who have had ayahuasca experiences, a lot of them will report seeing entities that look pretty similar or having experiences that are very similar, even if they have no experience whatsoever about other people's visuals on ayahuasca. And I, again, purposefully did that same thing with that experience and with any of the others. I just don't look into it because when I have the experience, I want to be able to talk to other people and have them say, "Oh, yeah, I've had that exact same thing," or something very similar, or "Yes, I can validate your story in this way." And for me, and maybe only me, it's proof that there is still something yet that I have to uncover or understand more out there. It's a humbling and also exhilarating experience, really. So,
Do you, and that's an awesome response. Do you find that most experiences are happening while in astral travel or just in this dream state? Because the reason why I ask is because there's a lot of UFO abductees that talk about potentially their experience being, their consciousness being abducted rather than their physical self. So the reason that's why I asked that, because I want to see what you think about, is this full-time consciousness abduction or interaction with phenomena versus physical you in the flesh encountering these things out there?
right. Yeah, I do believe that it is more on the astral plane, but it can be, both. There can be physical incarnate interactions like what people have talked about with certain like if they're out ghost hunting and they get marks on their body from, some dark entity that actually interacts with their body in that way, other type of poltergeist activity. So there is some of that in the physical world, but I do think a lot of it, at least for me anyway, definitely happens more on that astral plane. And when I guess think of myself, or when I'm perceiving something on that other astral plane currently, the default is just to think about my earthly avatar, this character, this body, this I joke about calling it a carcass, but this body is what I envision in my head, but it's just because that's the default. And so when I go, I'm seeing myself usually as that, not always. Sometimes I do take on other characters, personas, people, perhaps other lifetimes, but I mean that's another story. So yeah, I do think much of it happens in that astral plane.
What do you think the end goal is? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say end goal, but the at least a long term goal for humanity as far as our status. Should we even consider being off planet species? Are we meant to be here, contained to Earth? What do you think? If you've ever thought about that?
Yeah. So uh, I that's a tough question because I shy away from a lot of stories, like you said, meant to be or contained, because a lot of the language tends to create this sort of imprisonment sort of story schema, that we have. And when people start thinking like that, then again it's like, oh, we're in hell, we're in purgatory, we're and they'll tell stories to justify whatever their feelings are at that particular time. So I think our souls, before we got here, we purposefully chose to be here to experience whatever it was, a certain set of experiences on the lifetime that we're here, and to participate in, other beings' paths and experiences. So it tends to be far less, is it good, is it bad, or any of those types of stories. And it's just, I guess, more or less the concept of wu wei, if you've heard of that, which is just, it is what it is, it'll be what it'll be, you know and to just be present in the moment to experience whatever it is that you're experiencing. It could be something horrible, by anybody's standards, experiencing a tragic loss of some sort, or an illness, or whatever have you. But our lives are finite. That experience is finite, and then this too shall pass. It will move on. All of those things. So it's for me, it's more of that neutrality mentality, I guess I could call it.
Awesome, awesome. So let's talk about, because I had a viewer that wanted you to touch on mimics. What do you
Mm.
know about those? I know that's in the cryptid world. I don't really delve into cryptid so much. I know that the reality is there, and there's so many different ones you could even, want to sit down and talk about. But someone did want to specifically have you address mimics. What do you
Yeah,
know about those guys?
definitely. It's a good subject, and I've got a couple of really good stories for you too. So I think it's mimics. So when you say mimics, I think about entities that are specifically mimicking a particular form for whatever reason. That could be to be seen by a human and gain a particular response. It could be just because, as I mentioned some time ago, it could just be that's just the way they wish to present themselves at that particular time. There's more sentience there. It could be just like we have, animals here that you might call NPCs, non-playing characters, who it's just a program running. So there's really, nothing going on there. It's just an entity and nothing more, which some cryptids could be that way, could just be, like a random rabbit that you saw on the road. But others could be more sentient. And I mean, there's a spectrum within every group, every species. So it's not black or white. It's a constant spectrum through everything. And so when you say mimics, I think something that's specifically mimicking rather than maybe something that's just an NPC character. And a mimic, in my opinion, is something that a lot of the ones that I have seen anyway, or that I have heard of, are trying to garner a particular response or a particular interaction from whatever is viewing them. So the two mimic experiences that I had were mimics that actually mimicked Tillie, my wife. And for me, I realized that going all the way back to the beginning, this podcast, when I told the story, that she's really the only person I think that I could truly trust, because I believe that because she had that ability to, see me for who I was and was very honest about everything through and through, has never been deceptive in any way, that I can trust her and only her. And so the mimic experiences that I've had have very much been trying to gain my trust, not in my belief, not to harm me, but to help me. And I am just extremely stubborn and resistant to that sort of thing. So the two experiences that I had, the first one, I believe, yeah, both times I was, again, laying in bed. Tillie's next to me. This is a dream state. And I am just about to fall asleep when I kind of, wake up and I go to turn her direction. I can see that something that's presenting as her, but I figured it was her, leans over and just puts her hand, over the top of my face and just said, "Shh, go back to sleep." And that is nothing that she would ever do. In fact, the opposite's always true. She's usually awake, bouncing, chipper, perky morning kind of person. And I am not. So it's usually the other way around. She's trying to wake me up rather than get me to go to sleep. And instantly, because this is, she would never either. She would never tell me what to do, especially in that sort of manner. She's always very considerate. Having this entity try to do that, I immediately start to fight it. Oh, heck no, I'm not going to sleep. Something's not right here. And if anybody's ever been on a roller coaster or in a really fast car where, you get that G-force and, the skin on your skull just feels like it's, getting ripped back and you weigh 10,000 pounds, that's exactly how I felt in that moment. I felt like I was fighting the gravitational pull of the sun, trying to just lift my head off the pillow and wake up. And I'm, fighting because I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to go down, because whatever's about to happen, I do not consent. I don't agree. And when I said that, kind of in my head, and I thought, I don't want this. I'm fighting this. I don't want this. It stopped. And, I wake up, the weight goes away, and I look over, and of course, Tillie's sound asleep. And I'm kind of alarmed by this because there's an entity that seems to have been trying to put me to sleep. Why, I don't know. So I wake her up and I'm telling her about it. And she said, "Well, I think it may have been somebody from, my side, the people that look out for me. And I don't think that they meant you any harm. But, when you said you didn't want that, then they just went away. They wouldn't participate. It was an active, I do not want this. I do not consent." And so they agreed. It was that tit for tat. And I went, okay, well, I guess if it's that simple, then I should have a handle on this. So it happened again where these entities decided to mimic Tillie, dream state, in bed once again. But this dream is far more pleasant. This time, Tillie is wrestling around with me, kind of poking fun at me, like, "Hey, you wanna go? Maybe have a little morning rumble." Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I think we could do that. Yeah, I got some time. So we're wrestling, and she pins me down. I'm like, all right, this is new, but I can handle this, And she really pins me, and I'm thinking, okay, no, all right, this isn't how things normally go. Normally, it's okay, I'll let her win for a minute, and then we'll proceed to our normal. And that's not what happened. I go to move and I can't move. I'm thoroughly pinned to the bed. And I'm panicked a little bit for a second, so I freeze because I don't really know what's about to happen here. Because I'm in my mind going, okay, this is not quite Tillie, but also maybe so I missed something. I second guessed myself. And then that dreaded moment that some people describe when they've had alien abduction experiences, I feel pressure between my lower cheeks. And I went, no, this isn't Tillie. We've never talked about this before. This has never been part of our repertoire, our gameplay. We don't do this. I don't consent. And boom, again, I'm awake. And Tillie's sound asleep next to me. And I'm like, okay, no, wake up. Wait, you need to tell me what's going on here. These things are going further than they've gone before. What is going on? And she's, ever the objective. She sits there for a minute and then she starts laughing. She goes, I think I know what it is. And this apparently had happened on the eve of my, I think it was 35th birthday, somewhere around there. And according to her and her people, that this would be the appropriate time for a health exam. And I said, no, that seems a little too soon, for me, especially here, as humans. She goes, well, ever since you and I worked out this deal, you spoke to the crocodile god, and the god prompted me to start working, with you more closely. That was sort of the green light that you were ready to do some of this, work that we now do on our channel, talking about the paranormal experiences and this, non-human psychology, basically. She said these entities just wanted to make sure that you were doing all right. They take me regularly for health checks and to make sure that I'm doing okay. They just wanted to do the same for you. But if you don't want that, then totally understand. You can say no at any time. And I said, yes, I did say no. And I'm not I'm not okay with that. I said, why does it have to be that way? Why does it have to be through the back door? She said that unfortunately is just how the best health remedies apparently are given, which, as we're finding out, is not too far from reality. Things like fecal transplants and other forms of medication, apparently, and treatments for things like cancer can best be done that way. Not that we would like to entertain it, but more and more we're learning that to be the case. So,
Right. That is awesome, actually.
yeah.
And so going through all this, and so because when you talk about these experiences, okay, UFO here, cryptid there, paranormal there, all these different parts of the phenomena, it's cool that you have a significant other in this with you that fully understands and actually, specializes in another part of this in a way that allows you to, not have to always think it through yourself. She has a lot of ideas in ways that this is looking. What have you guys put together so far? Because I know everyone gets to a point to where if they've experienced so many things, now they start trying to put puzzles together and to see what the bigger picture is. Have you guys started doing that yet? And then if so, what have you seen so far? What have you come to so far?
Yeah, really, mostly what I had been saying before, which is that there are different dimensions, and these beings that have far more experience, less ego content than the human character has, will ascend to these different dimensions and then have the option to be able to move between them and have different types of experiences that we as humans are not quite privy to. We will often put things into a hierarchical perspective, like, oh, it's one is better than the other or higher than the other, but that's not really how it is. It's more of a linear spectrum, back and forth in that way. And again, that these are just experiences. We will label them as humans, good or bad, based on feelings and ego and stories that we want to tell, things that make sense to us. But it's just an experience. That's all that it is. And it, for me, making it just that simple sort of helps to navigate and weather some of the perhaps more difficult experiences that we have here. It is, in a way, sort of a developed spirituality that gets this human ego, this human avatar through. She has been instrumental in my development in that way, and me on the other side of that, being so grounded here in the human experience and the human perspective. She's often had a very hard time with social interactions with average people, very much like people who are high functioning autists or, on the neurodivergent spectrum, social interactions can be very difficult for them to navigate because they don't understand things like figures of speech. I shouldn't say they. Things like figures of speech can be difficult for people who are, challenged in that way because they think very literally. And that's not, again, any kind of derogatory statement. It's just the fact of the way that their minds work. And I have been able to help her with navigating the average human experience, which is full of, not literal language, figurative language, full of manipulation and selfishness and ego that she doesn't quite understand. She's had a lot of psychic readings and all of them say the same thing, which is that, she is close to a pure form of love and light. And that's not to say that she doesn't have her moments again where we have arguments and things like that. It's not at all saying that things are perfect and sunshine and rainbows. That's not at all the case. It's just that her core essence more reflects that integrity and pure love and light that people here have a hard time, I think, trusting and believing because we're just so used to everybody being out for themselves and the average person being swayed by something as simple as whether or not they ate that afternoon that creates their mood and whether or not they're likely to be docile or not. So that's all so strange to her. So she helps me with just being, I guess, at peace with all of this world that was previously completely unknown to me and could be traumatizing and scary, I can see, for a lot of people. And I just help her just exist in social interactions here on this planet and be, better protected in that way. So,
Do you still wear a skeptic hat? And if so, when you put it on, like what type of how do you challenge some of the things that you have experienced? Like what type of questions do you ask yourself internally about some of the things that you've experienced?
yeah, that's a great question. And I do absolutely put on my skeptic hat. And I think, I should say keeping that, questioning part of you consistently active, that critical thinking part of you active is just a part of good psychological hygiene so that you don't fall victim to things that maybe you want to believe because of your emotional state or, ignorance or, for whatever reason. So I do keep that, with me, but I'm careful to keep it in balance so that it doesn't become an automatic, nope, that's, closing myself off to any possibility because, I don't know of a way that it could be true or, what have you. So staying somewhere in between and gosh, certain questions to ask myself. One of them is just analyzing my own personal state at that particular moment. Could I be tired? Could I be hungry? Could I be missing something because I'm not perceiving something properly? Being fully aware that human memory is pretty unpredictable and not very accurate. There have been a lot of studies that have been done to try to discredit eyewitness testimony, especially in jury cases, for example, where it's been proven that whatever that person remembered actually didn't happen at all, or that people can be manipulated or suggested into a new truth. So some of the questions that I'll ask myself are, okay, what sorts of vulnerabilities do I have that could maybe explain what I've potentially perceived? So being aware of my own personal state for starters. And then, okay, if there's nothing that I think could be there, then what about anything that I know, quote unquote, scientifically? So one example that I have of an experience that I had was with a hair tie, just like this, actually.
Let's hold that right there. Hair tie. We'll continue that right on the other side of the break. Last 30 minutes with our guests after the break, guys. Let's get it together. We do appreciate the conversation we had thus far with Artemaeus Treadwell, experiencer. We'll have more of this and your questions when we come back right after the break on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. right, we are clear. We got 5 minutes. We're still on air. And let's see, guys. So questions. Let me see how many, if I have some so far. I got one. We answered that. Two thus far. We could use at least maybe three or four more. Three or four, maybe five more questions. So guys, put them in gaps. Let's get them on out there. Also, some other people that came mid-show looks like. But I don't remember calling out earlier. So maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But I feel better saying your name twice than not at all. So Eversor, thanks for coming on in. Red Tip Savage, thanks for coming on in. I'm sorry, T-Bone. Thank you so much for the awesome super chat as well. Thanks for supporting the show here tonight. Who else did we have that seems like they came mid-show? Let's see. We got Undead Jed. We got Linda. Hey Linda, thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you lurking as you always do. Kevin Kennedy TMI as well. Thanks for coming on in. A lot of you guys lurk and then pop in at the last minute. We do appreciate you coming in at all. And for anyone who is new, once again, we do this once or twice a show. So you're here on the After Hours Radio Show. This is Saturday, Sundays, 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. With me, Mr. Rob G, Drew Banky as well. We have Dave Scott running the Wu Train Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific until midnight. We have Lee Strauss and Tim James with the Element 115 on Fridays from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific. So once again, a lot of things going on here at Space Out Radio, 7 days a week. You can get something that I'm sure you'll get interested in. And even if you didn't, you could always hop into the archive, which has thousands of episodes in there, and they're absolutely free. What more could you ask for? Definitely consider coming back, hitting the subscribe button, notification bell, so you know next time we go live or we post a video. It would be appreciated. We'd love to see you back. Also, let's see who else has come on in. Thirsty. I knew I saw you, Thirsty. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you popping in. Prince Arcane. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing up. Let's see. Go back here. Who else? Saw you guys talking about Atari 2600s in Commodore 64s earlier. Dude, you guys are going way back with that kind of talk. I do have an Atari flashback at home right now. It has a lot of those old games on it, so kind of making me want to break it out the box. So I might have to do that. And who else is here? I think we might be good. Joe Monk says, I remember being jealous of a kid that had a Commodore 64. Yeah. I didn't get a Nintendo until after they were already out and released. I used to always go to my friend's house. They always thought they were so cool because they had all the systems. They had the Segas, the Nintendos, and we used to just go over there and play at their house, eat up their mom's food, go in the snack cabinet, make all kind of snacks and stuff, and play video games. Those were the days. A lot simpler then.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. Woo Riders DG. Hang in there, Rob GC. Things will get better. This is a season of change for a lot of people. Keep pushing forward. Muscles emoji. I like that. That's the mindset, and that's how it should always be all the time. So let's keep putting that energy out there for each other, and yeah, it will manifest it for sure. Fast-Semi, I always loved Atari. Yeah, I have Pitfall on there. I have a lot of those old school Frogger. Come on, Frogger. Let's go. I was really young at the time when those came out, so I don't really remember playing that. Though there's only certain ones I remember playing. Let's see. All right, we're coming back in 5 seconds here. Let's get it on. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 2, the back half of the second hour of the show. Back here with our guest, Artemaeus Treadwell, having an awesome conversation. Experiencer, guys, make sure you get your questions ready, too, because he would love to answer them. So make sure you post them in all caps. I'll get them asked as we jump right back on into the conversation here with Artemaeus. And Artemaeus, you were in the middle of saying something. I don't know if you remember what you were saying.
I do, yeah. That's another experience that I had with a hair tie. And for any of your podcasters that are listening, it's just a simple black, hair tie. And we were talking about the questions that I ask myself when I have experiences to maybe determine whether or not it's something that I could have, manufactured from my mind, or if it's something that I'm actually perceiving from other than this reality. And this instance, Tillie and I were standing in front of a very large bathroom mirror getting ready for something. And a very plain mirror. There are no shelving units or anything above it, to the sides. It's just a plain piece of glass sitting in front of a, plain countertop, bathroom sink. And we're getting ready, and I'm looking straight ahead, and from roughly stomach height, so, definitely within my vision, not peripheral, directly in front of me, literally from nowhere drops this black hair tie onto the bathroom sink. And Tillie was not playing with a hair tie. She didn't have anything in, her hair getting ready. So it didn't come from, maybe she accidentally flung it from, above and it came, from the side or from above my head, none of that. It literally appeared directly in front of me and in front of a mirror. So I saw the reflection, I saw the hair tie, and I saw the hair tie drop onto the sink. And I sat there and I looked for a minute. I'm thinking, okay, I know that couldn't have come from literally anywhere because it just appeared in front of me. It did not come from the side, up, top, bottom, nowhere. And Tillie was not messing with anything. And she looked at it and she went, "Oh, I needed that." Picked it up and put it in her hair. And I looked over at her. I said, "You saw that, right?" She said, "Yeah, I did." "You saw it, right?" "Yeah, I did." "Okay." And that was it. Like, no more discussion happened on it. Nothing. I just, we both agreed that it happened. She didn't find it obviously upsetting. In fact, she needed that hair tie. And having experiences like that where somebody else, you have sort of a model to kind of look at and go, okay, that can be okay. That's all right. That's not a bad thing. And we can move on. That can be something that we can talk about. And in that moment, because I had checked against, okay, I've slept, I'm not sleep deprived, I'm not hungry, I'm not thirsty, I'm not, there is nothing, it didn't come from my periphery, I can't explain it any other way. Okay, what are the science, potentials that could, nope, I have nothing. I literally have nothing. Okay, this is one of those instances where I surrender to the possibility that it literally just appeared from my perception of nowhere. So, other instances, of course, I can't say that because it could be explained by any number of things. But that was such a controlled scenario that I truly have no other explanation.
And there's a lot of things out there that's the answer. I have no explanation. Things are so weird and unexplainable. And it's the onion. It's the peeling back another layer and another and another. And I think that's what I keep finding in this field. And that's why, I want to go all the way to the end with it. But that's why I've kind of slowed down when it comes to some of the things that are on the extremities of the phenomena. because I can get to those, but let me absorb the things that I'm already, confronting and experiencing first. And I think there's a lot of that. And I think when you try to take on too much, you end up getting overwhelmed with all the different directions that the phenomena hits you from. I would ask you this before I jump into the questions. Do you consider yourself at this point, once you collect a certain amount of data, you can consider yourself a data collector or even a researcher if you're out there looking for answers? Where do you see yourself fitting into that? More as just an experiencer, or do you feel yourself moving into the research angle? And then what do you hope to see, as far as answers that may come regarding the phenomena before you leave this earth?
Yeah. So I kind of like you. When you start to do more digging, it seems like the hole just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and there doesn't really seem to be an end to it. Or maybe you become so overwhelmed by what you're experiencing that to go any deeper might just tip you over the edge. And I think, I mean, there's a reason for that, that we are only meant to see so much in this particular, lifetime. And that's just, we've got many more to live. So slow down, enjoy it a little bit, take what you're experiencing and then, okay, what do you want to do with that? What seems like would be the next logical step for you? And it's going to be different for everybody. They each have their own, stories or paths to follow. For me, it's less about the experiences and it's been more about the understanding of this alternative psychology that I personally have found great inner peace and strength from, and a perspective that I don't claim that it's the right perspective. I just know that for me, it's been a helpful one. And so I like to share people this amalgamation of the evolutionary biology that I understand, this understanding of the human animal as one prone to sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system responses, and harness that, control that in a way that just leads to a much more stable and peaceful life. And maybe that means a more stable and peaceful society. I don't know. That's not for me to try to control or say. But in my corner, on my side, I share these things in the hopes that it helps other people with whatever they're going to go and experience moving forward. It doesn't have to be any further than that.
Awesome answer. Awesome answer. And let me go ahead and bring up audience question here from Matt Goodka saying, are there any suggestions Artemaeus can give me for certain dreams I have? I am dreaming, I think, but I am in a position I am sleeping and something joins me in bed or tries to take the covers off.
So, all right. So there might be a couple of things going on there. And in the dream state, it could be that your own subconscious is speaking to you in various ways, and it could also or could be another entity that is attempting to interact with you. And it's difficult to know which one it is until you have turned that lens inwards and looked within yourself first. And when I say that things like therapy and meditation and mastering your emotions, understanding how you work as a psychological being, as an emotional being, as a physical being, until you understand all of those things as much as you can, it's going to be very difficult to tell whether it's your subconscious talking to you or another entity. And so the focus for me has always been do your work first before you do anything else. Because humans, from what I understand, what I've seen, love to look outside themselves first for everything. They'll blame other things. They'll look for love outside. They'll look for things to hate, missions, like whatever it is, their purpose, their, reason for living, their motivations, whatever it is, they will look outside themselves first for everything. But until you turn that lens inwards first, you do all that inner work first, that's what's going to leave you open to the manipulation, and then not knowing whether or not, your dreams are trying to communicate with you something, you yourself communicating, or it's something else. So that's where I would start before anything else.
All right, awesome answer there. And T-Bone is asking, what planetary strangeness has Artemaeus experienced?
Yeah. So the one story that I have, it was the night that Tillie and I were out at a campfire, and it was way out in the country in Florida. So we could see the stars, no light pollution. It was gorgeous. And we were watching up in the sky. We saw the moon, and then what we thought was a planet, bright star, and I have one of those apps on my phone that tells me when I point it up what I'm looking at. And according to this app, I was looking at Venus. And as we're sitting there, at the campfire, we're watching, we're looking, and we're very distinctly noticing that this planet, supposed planet, is definitely descending down towards the horizon. It's changing its position from its relation to where the moon was, which I've never seen before. And over the course of about 2 hours that we were out there, this planet went from its position near the moon almost all the way down towards the horizon, and then came back up. I've watched the sky. I know what satellites look like. I've seen shooting stars. I've seen other strange, light phenomena, but, which, who knows, could have been, some government aerial thing. But in this case, it was a labeled on my app, on my phone app, a planet that was nothing else was around it that it could have been labeled as, that distinctly and noticeably moved, down and then back up again. This was the same night that I saw that rod of what seemed to be sentient light move, just outside of the shadow and then away. So there's some strangeness that happened that night. We actually saw that happen on 2 different occasions, the planetary movement, that same labeled Venus planet, same position at the moon, near the moon, where it, again, down and back up in about 2 hours. Also, when we were out at another campfire at a different location. So I don't know what that means exactly, but definitely not like anything I'd ever seen before, and not threatening, just strange.
All right, awesome stuff there as well. And let's see, we have Amanda's Crazy Life channel who asked a question. She said she wanted to know, has anyone asked if he's related to Timothy Treadwell? Or
No,
was she
yeah,
no? Okay.
no, just common last name.
All right, awesome stuff. And then we have T-Bone again. Looks like he wants to know what Artemaeus can tell us about the Mandela Effect.
Yeah. So my personal theory about the Mandela Effect, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier in the conversation, was that people are, constantly vacillating between dimensions, or not dimensions, between realities, quantum realities. And they don't really realize that day to day because it's such a subtle shift that happens. But the Mandela Effect, in my opinion, in my theory, happens when people are consciously perceiving those different realities. So for me, it's happened a couple of times with signage for major businesses where things will be spelled differently, like the Home Depot versus Home Depot, or Chick-fil-A spelled with a CK instead of just a K. So in my memory, it was Chick-fil-A CHIK, and apparently now it's CHICK. And I mean, I love Chick-fil-A. I wouldn't miss that. But, to have a letter missing, that's, things like that. And they could just be subtle, things, or they could be major things. My wife and I have had a couple of experiences now where she has an entire day's worth of memories with me that I don't have at all. That she said, yeah, we went here, we did this, and you said that, and you like this thing, and I pointed this out. No, we've in fact, I've never even been there before, much less been there with you. We've had these discussions, and again, Tillie's not the kind of person that would just fabricate an entire day's worth of memories just for fun or to mess around with me. So we have a couple of experiences like that where there's entire memories that just do not exist for the other person. Or, I'll say, I love this thing. And she'll say, no, you don't. You hate that thing. Nope. Definitely never said that. And it wouldn't be, such an extreme memory. So sometimes she'll look at me like, who are you? And same thing, for me, because I'll be like, man, you told me your favorite flower was this, and this is why I got you that, So it's that typical thing where some guys, might get in trouble for forgetting something that their significant other really loves. In my case, it's no, just flat out, I'm going between different versions, different quantum versions of my wife, which is nice to be married to somebody who then doesn't say you're crazy or will blame me for something like that, because she's experienced things where genuinely, again, things that have appeared out of nowhere. So when I say, no, dear, I can't find that thing you're looking for, and then she'll find it, I won't get yelled at because she knows that it's possible it was just missing in another quantum dimension for a bit.
Wow, and funny you talk about quantum dimensions. I had a theory that it's something I was kicking around, and I'm gonna say it because I said it a few times before, but I also want to. I'm like, maybe I'll make it into a book or something. This is how crazy it sounds, but I was thinking and this made me think about this because I have different times in life where I'm like, wow, okay, you made it through that, or wow, you made it through that. Then you have a string of things that you're like, wow, you made it through. And then the question comes in, did you really though? Really? Or did you more likely shift onto another parallel existence? So in the original existence, you did not make it through that event. But in this new one that you're continuing on, you did make it through. So you have a lot of broken links along the way. But to you, it seems like one continuous, timeline, right?
Yep,
Um,
agreed.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because
Yeah.
and I thought about that. I was like, you know what, that sounds like a good book. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and actually, to say on that note, if anybody wants to read more about that exact sort of thing, different, shards of quantum realities and broken links, Tillie actually has written some pieces in a book here called Weird Time, put
Mhm.
out by Sean Castile and Tim Schwartz. And yeah, so if anybody is interested in that sort of thing, you can find a whole lot more in there by her, and then from some other fantastic authors. So.
Definitely will do that. Definitely was unaware. And then maybe we can have her come on next time with you. You were awesome, so I know she'll be awesome as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we have about 6 minutes here, and I wanted to make sure that you had time to promote what it is that you guys are into right now. But there was two questions. Okay, so T-Bone wanted to know. This was back when you were talking about the hair piece dropping out of air. So he was asking, time glitches. Do you think there's time glitches?
So, I mean, it's in that case, I don't think it was a time glitch. It was more or less something popping into this quantum reality that I was, conscious of and experiencing. But time glitches, I do believe, are definitely a thing. I have experienced time glitches where time actually more stands still or slows down versus missing time, which seems to be the more common experience, where I'll be, look at the clock, uh, I'll be involved in something for what I know is a solid 20 or 30 minutes, and it may have moved 2 to 3 minutes on the clock. So that's only happened to me a couple of times, but that I don't really have much of an explanation for as to why that happens, other than that I understand time to be a construct. So it's just, our conscientiousness, or I should say conscious creation of it, that it exists at all. So, time really, everything's happening all simultaneously anyway. So just another one of those default mode network glitches, I guess I would call it.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. And we had last question from Vast Hemi saying his art.
It spelled that wrong. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Artemaeus.
because I'm reading. I said your name 1,000 times during the show.
Yeah. It
Uh,
tripped him up. Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha.
have you had
No,
any time?
lost time. No, like I said, for me, it's just been time slowed way down. Yeah. So I can't relate to anybody who's had that, large stretches of time that seem to go missing. For me, that one can can more be explained by just our autopilot. You know, you drive from work to home the same route every day, and one day you get home and you're like, wow, I do not remember that ride at all. That's just that autopilot portion. So I think it's easier to explain that than it is time slowing down. That to me seems to be a more novel type experience that can't always be explained by our brain just doing whatever it does. So.
All right. And if you could, because let me see, that was the actual last question. Let's take some time to talk about your channel, what you and Tillie get into during your videos, what type of topics you cover, and why everyone should go over there and subscribe right now.
Yeah. So over on YouTube, we have the channel The Weird Walk Home. And right now I'm working on a series. It's basically sort of like a diary series called The Intermediary Diaries. And it just goes through all of the experiences that I've had with Tillie over the last 10 years or so since we've been together and married, how my life has changed and my understanding of human psychology through understanding what I think is non-human psychology, that intersection of those two. And now that we are what I consider to be a post-disclosure world, what we can actually do with that information rather than just being at the mercy of it. What sorts of personal responsibilities do we have? And if we want more positive interactions, how can we influence that? How can we control that? So we talk about that pretty much for right now. That's kind of the series that we've got going on. And then of course Tillie has the Weird Time book out, and she's currently working on some others. When those come out, they'll be on the channel. But yeah, that is the direction that we go.
All right, awesome stuff. And let me ask you this: do you feel like there was any particular reason why you had these experiences? Do you think they're relevant to one person over another? Do you think that maybe you had this sighting or these experiences, but the next person may have not had those? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So going right back to the way that I believe things happen, which is that before we incarnate in this reality, in this three-dimensional reality, we have a soul that chooses what we're going to experience to a greater or lesser degree. So kind of, create the character, create the avatar. And then, here we are, and here we have this experience. So I believe that my soul essence agreed to this experience before coming here. So whatever spin that I have on it was meant for me. And that goes the same for every other being that exists. And so if somebody else is going to have a different perspective, I welcome them and respect them to have that. That's their path, their journey. And if it intersects with mine in a way that's amicable, friendly, cooperative, great. If not, no hard feelings. So yeah.
Man, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff, Artemaeus. Like I said, I've had a great time with you here tonight. Definitely want to make sure that we speak again. I like conversations that move the needle. That's the motto here. And we have to have those. I feel like we definitely had one of those here tonight. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, I have all the same sentiments, and I greatly appreciate you coming on. And Tillie and I look forward to adding yet another dimension to the stories.
That's right. That's right. Well, Artemaeus, pleasure talking to you tonight. Everyone else loved you out there as well. Want to you to say hello to Tillie for us, and you have a great rest of your night. I know it's late there. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. You all as well.
All right. Later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Artemaeus in the building here, having a great conversation. We definitely want to thank him for coming on in tonight. We're going to go ahead and take our final break of the night right here, Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. See you in a minute.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, back in 5. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3, the third and final hour with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are coming back here in about 15 seconds. Definitely want to thank our guest, Artemaeus Treadwell. I don't know why I'm having a problem saying it the last minute there. That is wild. But we thank him nonetheless. We get ready to jump right back into the show. Hour 3, action packed. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3. That means we're getting in some real good stuff here with Steve Stockton Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries. Also, Drew Banky with After Hours Wrap Up, some UFO and weird news of the week, whole bunch of stuff. Make sure you don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. The After Hours radio show on Spaced Out Radio. As we go ahead and jump right on into our guy, Steve Stockton Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Number 4, Andrew Gosden. The disappearance of 14-year-old Andrew Gosden is one of the UK's most baffling missing person cases. South Yorkshire police have worked tirelessly over the years to find Andrew, but there have been very few leads to work on. Those from the UK will have many strong memories on Andrew's disappearance and the media storm and investigation that followed. It's been over a decade since Andrew disappeared, and the South Yorkshire police are still no closer to cracking this mystifying case. Andrew Gosden lived in Balby, Doncaster, South Yorkshire, with his parents Kevin and Glynis. The two provided Andrew with a happy and stable home life, and as a result, he was flourishing academically. He was in the Young, Gifted, and Talented program at school and had a perfect attendance record. It was clear that Andrew was destined for great things academically, and he excelled in every subject at school. With this, Andrew's father, Kevin, said that he was not streetwise and preferred to stay home and play on his Xbox and listen to metal music. This behavior is not uncommon for teenagers, and his parents were happy that he was flourishing academically and did have a small social circle of friends, good dependable ones. The lives of the Gosden family would be turned upside down one September afternoon, however, shortly after the new school year had started. Andrew had spent part of his summer holiday, which was 6 weeks, attending a Gifted and Talented program, and was apparently very happy and had a bright outlook for what lay ahead of him after he'd finished school. But September 14th, 2007 was different. Something inside Andrew had changed, and within the space of a few hours, his parents would be thrown into a missing person investigation that has spanned over a decade. On September 14th, 2007, Andrew got up and got ready for school as normal. He said goodbye to his parents and headed out the front door at around 8:05 a.m. By all accounts, this was just another day at school, and Andrew was seen heading toward the bus stop. However, instead of boarding the bus to school, Andrew kept walking and headed into the local park. Nobody knows why Andrew chose to skip school that day, but we do know that he waited in the park until around 8:30 a.m. By this time, his parents would have left for work, and Andrew knew that he would have the house to himself. This is just the beginning of the bizarre details surrounding the disappearance of Andrew Gosden, and things only become more mysterious from here. After waiting in the park, as we said, Andrew returned home, took off his school uniform, and put it straight into the washing machine. He changed into a Slipknot t-shirt, dark jeans, and packed his bag with his keys, wallet, and his PSP gaming system. Andrew didn't take his PSP charger with him, which indicated that he probably had every intention of coming back. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. As Glynis and Kevin went about their workday, they had no idea that their son was headed to Doncaster train station. Bank records confirmed that Andrew withdrew £200 from his account, leaving about £14 in the balance. Andrew walked into Doncaster train station, went up to the ticket office, and bought a one-way ticket to London. The woman who served Andrew recalled telling him that for just 50p extra, he could get a return ticket, but Andrew declined. He confidently stated that he wanted the one-way ticket, handed over the money, took the ticket, and made his way to the platform. No one knows why Andrew bought a ticket to London, nor why he only bought a one-way ticket. Was Andrew planning to meet with someone in London who had promised to take him back home, or did he plan to stay in London indefinitely? Witnesses reported seeing Andrew boarding the 9:35 a.m. train to London King's Cross Station, and by 11:25 a.m., he was captured on CCTV leaving King's Cross. This is the last confirmed sighting of Andrew, and over a decade later, we are still no closer to the truth. When Andrew's school noticed that he was absent that day, his parents were called. However, a clerical error was made and the wrong number was dialed. It wasn't until Glynis and Kevin arrived home from work to find Andrew's uniform in the house that they knew something was off. After calling out Andrew's name and searching all over the house, his parents realized that he was missing and dialed 999. South Yorkshire police responded to the call immediately, and the search for Andrew commenced. The area of Balby was searched thoroughly, and investigators began combing through Andrew's life. At the time of his disappearance, Andrew didn't have a phone, as he was known to lose them, and preferred to spend time on his Xbox and listening to music anyway. Flyers, posters, and news reports were circulated around South Yorkshire and Yorkshire with the South Yorkshire police, hoping that somebody would come forward with information. As the days passed and there was no word, the Gostens began to realize that the situation that they were in was incredibly serious. Then, days after Andrew disappeared, the South Yorkshire police got their first lead. The woman who sold Andrew the ticket at Doncaster train station came forward, and from here, the police were able to check CCTV and confirm that Andrew had traveled to King's Cross. Sadly, Andrew was not spotted on CCTV after he left King's Cross Station, and CCTV in the surrounding areas failed to show up anything. Now, there are three main theories in Andrew's case, with the first being that he was lured away by someone online. As we said, Andrew had an Xbox and a PSP, but forensic analysis of these and the data showed that Andrew was not registered online with an account. He reportedly didn't even use the family computer and didn't really touch online communications at all. This was backed up by digital forensic investigations that failed to turn up any online presence from Andrew whatsoever. His family did confirm to investigators that Andrew knew several people who lived in London, but none of these people have reported seeing Andrew on the date of or after his disappearance. The next theory that was well publicized in the British media was that Andrew had possibly gone to London to attend a gig or some sort of music-related event. Andrew loved his metal music, and a few gigs were going on around that time. But if that were the case, then why would he buy a one-way ticket? There were no sightings of Andrew at any of these music events, and there has been no proof to suggest that Andrew had tickets for any of these events either. The last theory is one that Andrew's father, Kevin, came up with. Kevin postulated that perhaps Andrew left to start a new life somewhere without the intervention of his family. His family were religious, but also said that they were open to sexuality and gender expression. This theory ties in with an interesting clue that came to light in 2018. It's important to preface this next section by saying that Andrew's nickname was Rue, and it was a nickname that only those closest to him knew and called him. According to reports, an anonymous witness told the police that in 2018, he had a conversation with someone online by the name of Andy Rue. The two people had started talking, and Andy Rue asked the anonymous witness for £200 so that he could pay his rent. This Andy Rue person went on to explain that he had left home at 14 and didn't have a bank account, so sending money via bank transfer would be difficult. He said that he needed the money because his boyfriend had left him, but never went into further detail about his private life. This lead gave the Metropolitan Police and the South Yorkshire Police a glimmer of hope, but it appears the person calling themselves Andy Rue has never been formally identified, and we cannot confirm whether or not this person is Andrew Gosden. Following Andrew's disappearance, his family traveled to London to hand out flyers and to appeal to witnesses and anyone with information to come forward. Kevin and Glynis have been the driving force behind keeping Andrew's name in the media, and they've continued to put pressure on the South Yorkshire Police and the Metropolitan Police to investigate his disappearance. This case has been incredibly well publicized, and in towns and cities across the UK, Andrew's missing person poster can still be seen. The charity UK Missing Persons works with the families of those who are missing to create posters, and they also run a tip line for those with information or for those who are missing and need someone to talk to. Despite all this media attention and investigation, no trace of Andrew has ever been located. After he left King's Cross Station, he seemingly vanished into thin air, and the investigation has laid dormant ever since. Well, that was until January 22, when once again the Andrew Gosden case made headlines. On January 11, 2022, the BBC published an article titled, "Andrew Gosden, 2 men arrested for trafficking and kidnapping." This headline shocked the nation, and the details of the arrest would shock them even more. According to the BBC, 2 men, aged 38 and 45, were arrested in December in London on suspicion of kidnap and human trafficking. The 45-year-old man was also arrested on suspicion of possessing indecent images. The 2 men were released on bail pending a further investigation, and the Metropolitan Police and the South Yorkshire Police are currently working the case. No further details have been released in regards to these charges, and the police are keeping their cards very close to their chests. Throughout the years, several age progression photos have been issued to show what Andrew may look like now as an adult. The River Thames has been searched numerous times by divers and with a sonar scanner, but this has not turned up any leads either. The South Yorkshire Police and the Metropolitan Police, along with Andrew's family, continue to search for him and hope that one day they will have answers or at least closure. Andrew Gosden was last seen wearing a Slipknot t-shirt, dark jeans, and was carrying a bag containing his keys, wallet, and PSP gaming system. He had bought a one-way ticket from Doncaster to King's Cross, London, and was last seen leaving Kings Cross Station at 11:25 a.m. on September 14th, 2007. Andrew has brown hair, has a unique double ridge on his right ear, is deaf in his left ear, and wears strong prescription glasses. Anyone with any information is asked to please contact 101 UK Missing People on 116000. The South Yorkshire Police on 0114 220 2020. The Metropolitan Police on 4420 7230 1212. Or Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111.
Once again, thank you, Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Mr. Person Mysteries, for being a part of the show, being an awesome part of the show. We couldn't do our show without you, and also the guy that's coming next year. None other than the man with the plan, the man with the scam, Mr. Drew Banky.
You're an irredeemable monster!
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! Get in my belly! Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up right here on the After Hours radio show. What's going on, bro?
Dude, we need to set some new parameters for my appearances on this show. Anytime someone mentions ayahuasca, I need to get a super chat for $1 at least. And source. I need to get trademark on ayahuasca. Maybe just on this show, not across all platforms, but just on the After Hours show, ayahuasca and source. Anytime that's mentioned, I get $1.
I told him I was like, we hit ayahuasca about the 6th time. You have to buy Drew Banky a drink here.
Right.
Yeah, this is his way. This is his thing.
So
I
was in meditation, so I'm like programmed. Anytime I hear ayahuasca more than 3 times within an hour, I go into a meditation. So I was passed out, but
and I always smile when I hear a guest mention one of those elements. I'm like, that's right up Drew Banky's alley. I know he's back here loving this part of the conversation for sure.
Yeah.
But what did you think about the guest overall? So you got the kickback. I know you stated that. I guess maybe you were interviewed by them at some point in the past, or
yeah, it didn't hit me till right at the end because I went when he said his YouTube channel. I went over there and I subbed him up, and I seen a picture of Tillie, and I was like, oh, I remember her. I did an interview with her like a while back, like a long time ago. I don't even remember it being released, but I don't know. That was a long time ago. But yeah, it struck me. We had a great conversation, and it all makes sense. Like you can just tell, man. Like it's something about ayahuasca and all this stuff that's going on right now, man. Egypt, ayahuasca, source, oneness, and I every time this gets mentioned on the show, I got to point it out. There's no duality. That's this idea keeps coming up that at some point in our existence we will experience a reality without no duality, without no love and hate. It's just all going to be just this hum, and that's the hum of existence. I was talking about that yesterday with some people. So yeah, this is good stuff, man. It's a good guest, good solid some good solid information being put out and vibe, just you could feel it. So
yeah. And shout out to Dirty Filth. He went ahead and lined this up for us a while back. At the request of Artemaeus, they actually had watched the show before and thought the show was cool and agreed to come on as well. So I'm like, cool, man. I'm cool. Yeah, you have people out there that kind of see what's going on and say, hey, I want to be on that show. And that's kind of what what we want the goal to be. You know, people out
Mhm.
there that have things to say, hey, you know what? Let me go ahead and jump on this show. Let me reach out and see if I can get on this show. And we are totally open to appearances. So if you're out there and you want to come on and talk about some things, just go ahead and reach out. You can reach out to either after hours at spacedoutradio.com, which is where you'll find my booking, and then you also have booking at spacedoutradio.com, which is where Dirty Filth handles the booking for Dave's show. So either way it goes, just close your eyes and point to either one. Doesn't matter, and just come on the channel. That's all we really want at the end of the day.
Dude, we like to have fun. This is, I mean, we try to. This is fun. The evolution of humanity. Like, if we're at this point of an evolutionary shift, it can be fun. Like, it doesn't have to be all serious. I love to have fun with it, and yeah, it's just. But yeah, the guest, you could just tell that he's experienced some things, and right, wrong, or indifferent, whether they happen or not to him, they changed them, and it's very apparent. So you can tell that very apparent, very clearly. And yeah, it was a great conversation. I was tuned in the whole time, man. It was great listening to it. The connections to Egypt. I was banking on Osiris. I even threw it up in the chat a few times, Osiris, and that turned out to be the alligator god.
Mm.
I've heard the alligator god come up before. That's not the first time I've heard it come up, but yeah, it's just, man, I think we're just in such an amazing time in humanity, all this unfolding, and it's like we're living we're living in like a real life experience of, like, what people are probably going to write about. This is probably going to be wrote and talked about for eons to come, this time we're living in right now. And it's it's very humbling. It's very amazing. And I'm just, my heart is exploding to be living in this time.
Not only that, and well said, but not only that, but think about if something happens with the record keeping between now and 5,000 years from now, and they tell a different version of the story of what's happening right now, or there's a misinterpretation in how this actually went. Like, we're living in one of those moments too, where the data that the things that we're doing could be misconceived or misperceived 5,000 years down the line. Is crazy to think. And I guess it's a good way to fail safe, the message making it through our next extinction or population, depopulation or whatever you might be. So we have the opportunity to make sure that the message is not perceived a different way. And I guess that's something we should also think about.
Yeah, I love that, dude. It's a I had this experience while I was listening. So I was thinking about the whole my birthday falling on Easter next year. So I looked it up and it said April 5th. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, I was going through like this mental like thing. Like, I was about to lose it in the background, in the background watching the show. And I'm like Googling it. I typed in a few times, and I'm like, had it changed? Like, was it April 11th? Like, was it? And it did change. There's something that happened with the alignment or whatever, but it changed over the past couple of days, like within the past couple of weeks. And man, it totally blew me away for a minute, man, because I thought I was like experiencing like this separate reality, but in a way, I guess we are. We seen and just witnessed, and I found proof that it was April 11th just a few weeks ago, but the date changed for next year to April 5th. Some alignment they calculated, and the date changed. But man, that really messed me up. But actually really we're seeing a different timeline, like a shift in a timeline. Isn't that wild?
It could be looked at it that way, and I was just trying to think about. I'm like, okay, what date are you talking about specifically? What is this in relation to Easter?
Easter of
Yeah, yeah.
2026 changed. It was April 11th, just like a week or so ago. It was April 11th of 2026 was supposed to be Easter. It got recalculated. Now it's April 5th. But so I haven't checked. I haven't like looked at anything like that, especially Googling or anything like that. So I looked it up today, just in the background when I was listening to the show, because I was thinking about some other projects I was working on, and it was April 5th. I was like, man, I was really questioning, like, did I ever see it as April 11th? Like, what's going on? And I looked it up, and I finally found an article that it changed their Jayan calendar or whatever, some type of calculation changed, and it changed the date to April 5th. So it was just, I don't know, man.
I've never figured that out. I always thought it was like the third Sunday of the month or something like that. I thought that's how they figured it out, but man, I guess I'm totally wrong if it's April 5th. I don't know how they actually do that, but that is something that I will actually have to look into. Let's see. Easter, also called Pascha Resurrection Sunday, is a Christian festival and cultural holiday commemorating the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, described in the New Testament as having occurred on the third day of his burial following his crucifixion by the Romans at Calvary, 30 AD. Doesn't say why they change it, but they do have a calendar.
The date changes. So this last year, 2025 it was 420 is April 20th. So this is why the conversation come up with me and my wife. And yeah, I Googled it. She didn't believe that my birthday was ever on Easter. I Googled it, and it come up that next year was my birthday. So that was like, back in April. But
I see what it is. It says apparently, yeah, it varies depending on the moon's position in early spring. Let's see. 4th century ruling Easter Sunday is the first Sunday of the first full moon of spring. Okay, so in 2025, the first full moon of spring occurs on April 12th, which is technically April 13th in Jerusalem, which is why Easter Sunday occurred on the 20th. Okay, so that makes sense then. The first Sunday of the first full moon of the spring. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways.
Well, that's interesting. We got a little knowledge update here right on the After Hours Radio Show, Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get everything that you need. You're going to get cryptids, UFOs. You're going to get Easter Sunday. You're going to get all that good stuff right here. Real talk, conversations that move the needle always and forever right here. We'll be back right after this break, the final break of the night on Spaced Out Radio, After Hours Radio Show. See you in a minute. All right, we clear. We got 4 minutes, 36 seconds before we come back. So yeah, that is actually pretty interesting. No, I never really stopped to understand what that was. I thought it was like, how they do Thanksgiving. It's the third Thursday of the month or something like that, right? And I thought they followed the same characteristics. So that's interesting to understand why that keeps changing every year. Oh, cool.
Yeah. But
cool
it's crazy.
Stuff.
It's crazy with just over the past couple of weeks, a calculation shifted and it changed from April 11th to April 5th. So,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So I'm in the background thinking, like, I'm questioning, did I ever see as April 11th, the couple weeks ago? And then I finally found this article that said it had shifted because of they realized alignment of the moon or whatever is connected to is going to be different. So I was just like, man, that's crazy. So
that is.
in a way we experience a shift in a reality, like that's just wild that just in a few weeks' time, the date of Easter can change.
Yeah, well, I guess you could technically say that is a shift in our understanding of reality as we know it. But then, yeah, something as simple as a position of a planet makes a difference, which I guess makes sense in the grand scheme of things if we
Sure.
generalize every day by the rotation, the orbit or the rotation of the Earth, right? So makes sense.
Yes, 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 yes. But yeah, it's just weird because I talked about that with so many people about my birthday being on Easter next year, and that changed. But it's crazy, man.
Like, no,
Well,
you're lying to me.
did you get a chance to look at those videos I sent you, my brother?
I didn't. Well, let's play them. Let's play them now. Let me play them now. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. But we can stick around after. We'll stick around after the show and play
Yeah,
them. We'll
it's all right.
for a few minutes.
It's quite all right. Yeah,
Oh.
Regulus Rising is Hillbilly Herb. Is that really is because I heard some mixed signals that that whole alignment is not actually happening on that day. And someone else said about the 3 dots, Stargazer, 3 dots in my pick represent the Trinity. Yes, three dots is a really good sign. It tells me a lot. Talk about it in my first book, the 3 dots. Yeah, I was given a whole creation story that has to do with the 3 dots and how the original Holy Trinity.
Talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I was I don't have time to get into it. I won't be able to get all the way into it, but basically what I was shown, it started off with source, and source separated 2 of its particles and into masculine and feminine. Those are the 2 other dots. So 3 dots is source, masculine, feminine, and that's how creation started. And from there, source stepped away and allowed creation to unfold. So he just started the 2 energies, basically splitting source into 2 fields, the masculine and feminine, and that's how creation started. So.
Whoa. Not sure. I don't even know how to verify it. You feel me?
Well, I don't know. It's not verifiable. It's not to be verified. But I write about it, and that's that's just how I experienced it, and then what I saw. So, yeah, the power of 3. People say Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but the idea stays the same.
Heck yeah.
You hear about the tornadoes we have in here in Colorado?
No, someone yesterday was saying something I didn't know where they were taking place. It's happening in Colorado.
One a day. We have one a day up north. Big one.
Coming back right now. Here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3 on the last half of the 3rd hour, right here, live and direct. We want to thank Artemaeus Treadwell for coming in for hours 1 and 2. We want to thank Drew Banky and Steve Stockton, Tales and Told Missing Person Mysteries for hour number 3. We're going to be jumping into some more of the After Hours wrap-up, plus some UFO and weird news of the week as we go ahead and jump right back up into the conversation here. So, yeah, a great conversation with Artemaeus earlier. I'm always pleasantly surprised when I speak to someone and they come across as if they've thought about a lot of this stuff, because there's some people are at different stages of this process of figuring it out. Some people have just gone through the experience, haven't really gotten to the breakdown stage yet. Like, let me break this down. or haven't talked to enough different people to have gathered enough data to compare their experience with to form an opinion. So you have some people that are in those early stages, but it's always cool when you're able to have someone come on that has gone through those initial stages and has now had time to sit and think and formulate some opinions on some of the things that are happening. I think that's where the magic starts to happen. So that, that's why I always definitely appreciate a conversation like this when we have them. How did this come across for you? What did this do for you tonight?
Oh, it's just, I mean, it's just seeing just another particle of myself expressing the same things, like using the exact same phrases and just explaining key things. Some of the things you were saying, especially talking about source. When anyone mentions source, ayahuasca, all in the same conversation, and Egypt, those are just. I'm a student right now. I'm a student of patterns. I'm a student of patterns and and craft and sightings and people and people in this awakening field. And that's, it's funny, so many different facets, getting back from the conference and talking to so many different people at the conference, not only Chris, but plenty of other people. And you start to see this pattern, but it just permeates over experiences like with plant medicine and, meditation, near death, craft, all this stuff, the UFOs and it. But you start to see this underlining pattern. So I'm a student of that lately, and I recognize a lot of that in this guest. So, and it's kind of, it's kind of the BS detector, if you will. It's and people get so hung up. Well, did this person actually experience this? Did this being actually come here? This, that, and the other. Who really cares? Like what the point is what happens? What is the underlining uh symptoms, or what happens to that person after that experience, whether it be real or not, whether it be consciousness, physical. People get so hung up trying to figure out that when they're distracted from the lesson that's actually happens to that person. Lots of times person gets healed physically, emotionally, spiritually from a interaction, whether it be with craft or abduction, taken on a ship. They always come back with something like that. And it's I think that's what we need to focus on. Like what is what is the overwhelming proof that is happening from these interactions? It's almost always positive, almost always positive. And a lot of them could be considered miracles, like happen from these experiences. So let's not we need to really try to take a step back and really focus on what is unfolding in this disclosure movement right now. And it's a pattern, and we need to start studying those patterns more deeply because they're there.
One thing that really stood out for me that I really appreciated in this conversation tonight was, and I thought was different. It was a little different. Was the fact that he felt like most of his experiences were happening within the dream state, which is one of the things that skeptics will one of the first questions they'll ask you. Do you think you were dreaming? Do you think it was possibly a dream? And so he comes forward and says, I really feel like most of this stuff I've experienced has been in the dream state. Now, does it make it any more or less relevant? I don't think it does. No. But I think what it still does is it still opens the conversation up to saying, if this didn't physically happen, is it really something to grip onto? Is it really something to hold on to? And I guess if you leave it as it is, with the statement that most of this happened in the dream state, then it's up for you to determine if it goes any deeper than that. You know what I mean?
let me set this up real quick. So a lot of us, including myself, has had dreams that's manifested out in the physical, right? Like that has happened. Call it deja vu, call it astral travel, call it precognition dreams. There's a multitude of names that you can call it, but that experience. What about the dreams that don't manifest out in physical? Does that make them any less impactful to you than the ones that manifest out in physical? The answer for myself is no, because I know that there is a connection. If there's a connection once, then I know there's a connection always. And that's the reason that dreams connect from the dream state to the physical to allow us to see faith in our dreams. And then when they don't come out in physical, we don't have faith in it. We're missing the point of it. The whole point of that magical moment is so the communication can come through. Because I tell you this, I know why. I'm the same. A lot of my experiences up until recently, up until probably the last couple months, I've been seeing a lot of stuff happen in the sky, filming a lot of it and all that stuff. But a lot of my experiences have come in the dream state as well. I've had face-to-face encounters in the waking state, but a lot of my experiences with ET and being on craft, things like that, after seeing craft at night in the physical, go inside and go to sleep, and then have experience with that craft in dream state or that being in dream state. So I totally get it. But I know the reason why I did it, because when I started having the times when I would have experiences face to face and get started, walk around the corner and something be standing there and be faced with this being, I was like, man, I can't do that. Like in my mind, I was like, I'm comfortable with the dream. Like that's where I'm comfortable at. If you want to interact with me in the dream state. And I think a lot of us, that's why we have the experiences in dream state, because subconsciously we say like, okay, I got boundaries, and everything. Another thing he was talking about, he was talking about when he decided to stop something, it would stop. That's because
Mhm.
that's because one of the universal laws that govern all of creation. And I'm not talking about Earth, this planet, solar system. I'm talking about all of creation across all dimensional fields is free will. All beings have free will, and that's especially one of the ones that we operate under, and that you hear about it all the time. But a lot of the things that happen with us are governed by free will. So whether we consciously or subconsciously are choosing, a lot of us are saying, or putting up these boundaries and saying, okay, this is where I'm comfortable at this time, this is where I'm comfortable to operate with you, and for basically my sanity's sake.
I'm with that. I'm with that. And especially when you think about the dream state as potentially being a real place. That's kind of where this now takes a different turn, and now the auspice of it being a dream, which means it can't be reality for some people who process it like that. Then it can't be reality because it's a dream or you're in a dream state. But then you move over to the idea that what you experience in the dream state is a real experience, and that you are somewhere, that your consciousness has left your body and has gone out into wherever and has reached an actual destination where things are real. So
Yeah.
when you look at it like that, then it's like, okay, then it's real again. So it's like, okay, it's a dream, so it can't be real because it's a dream. Dreams aren't real. Then it's like, okay, well, wait, dreams might be real if we're talking about astral travel, lucid dreaming, because the experience is so authentic. Then now it's back into the real category again. So it's like,
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know,
mean, the government's been working with it. We're finding all these CIA files coming out. We're finding proof of that. Not only that, look at all old texts talking about tribes. Like the dreamer was, there was like the tribal leader, or the leader of the tribe, And then there was like the dreamer. Like there was actually like positions in some of these old cultures just for the dreamer. Like people would go like, what'd you dream about last night? And they would they would plant their food, they would hunt, they would move their camps according to what these people were dreaming. So it's only a lot of these things that we have throughout time we have really leaned on as humans, as a human species, to evolve and thrive. It's crazy. Over the past like 100 years or so, they have been washed out and made to look like they're not real. And it's an attack. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's an attack on consciousness, and it's a direct attack against humanity, to whitewash all these things and make them look like they're not real when they are. And we have actually really thrived on this knowledge and understanding for a long time. And just recently of this industrial age, it's been looked at as something that we're not supposed to do. Even just all types of things, like uh we don't eat um organs anymore, like organ meat. Like a lot of we're eat like steaks and like ground meat and stuff like that, but won't eat the organ meat. Like it's thrown away and or put into dog food and things like that. Like think back, like for eons, for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, like one of the first things that you would eat, like if you were out there and hunting, gathering, and killing an animal on the plains, you would eat the heart, liver, things like that. And that's one of the things that we're getting away from. And we're starting to find out that the nutrients that you would find in those different organs, these are the exact things that we're lacking in our diets, and it's coming up as deficiencies across a wide spectrum of humanity, especially in the Western world. It's crazy.
Well, that is awesome stuff. That's a great place to put a pin in it. And especially it was talking about dreams. I'll just say this. Someone was saying this earlier tonight, and I keep saying I'm gonna do it, but I haven't done it, which is when you have those dreams, because you forget them immediately, write down the information from the dream. I'm gonna start actually doing that. I'm gonna like make myself do it for like a 6-month period, and then I'm going to look back on everything that was captured within that 6 months to see if just like why not do it and read it out loud and see what we can figure out from that.
I got one question, Rob.
Yeah.
How many times is a guest gonna come on and talk about psychedelics before you open your eyes to the sign that it's time to say, "Hey, Drew, I'm on the way, bro"?
Man, Drew, you don't know how.
I'm just saying.
I'm telling you, and I think about it a lot to answer your question. I think about it all the time. I'm like, damn, as soon as they say DMT, I'm like, Drew Banky. So, no, it's definitely on my list. I think we always talk about how stars align and synchronicity, things like that. And I think that moment is gonna come, right? Where everything aligns for that to happen, and then it happens, instead of trying to say, I'll pin down a date. Let's do it this time, try to force a date. Let's let the stars align, and I know they will, because they have thus far. And then we'll go ahead and jump into that. I think that's probably how it'll happen.
I'm just saying, I think the stars are aligning already. Sometimes you do have to put forth physical effort. Like you're not gonna just teleport on my front porch.
Yeah, that I won't, especially where you live at, buddy. Yeah,
man. Wait, we're moving, man. That's we've been working on getting everything going for this move. We're gonna be moving in July to the Crestone in this new place. It's amazing, dude.
and back into the city or the outback again?
No, it's Crestone, so it's like it's
I seen that.
Crestone's the spiritual retreat center. It's been calling us back for a long time. We lived there before, But this place that we found, it's on a creek. It's got its own swimming hole in the creek. It's got an aspen meadow, so it's got large trees that are over 100 years old, big, and yeah, it's amazing. It's perfect for us, and everything's aligning perfectly for it. So
Jealous, man. You'll have to tell us more, Drew Banky. Appreciate you stopping on in for the night. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up for the weekend. We'll be back next week with a great guest. Until then, Drew Banky, we will talk again.
peace out.
All right, sir. Take care. Drew Banky, After Hours Wrap Up, right here on Spaced Out Radio, guys. Definitely want to go ahead and get ready to jump into at least one news story. Let's try and get this done right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. And since we probably only have time for one, I picked the weirdest of the two that I had here. And this one, I don't know if you've heard it. If it gets too graphic, I'll just have to make sure I leave that part out of this story. But it's the tragic story of the loneliest man in the world who spent 26 years alone in the Amazon rainforest. Can you imagine spending that much time by yourself? Blessing or a curse? You can put it in the chat right now. Blessing or a curse? The tribesman never said a word to the outside world for almost 3 decades. It's an article by Sakisa Kaliste. The loneliest man in the world spent almost 3 decades surviving on his own in the depths of the Amazon rainforest. In the heart of Brazil's sprawling rainforest, there was once a man who lived entirely alone, having never uttered a word to another human being or coming in contact with the outside world for 26 years. The tribesman, known as, quote, last of his tribe and, quote, man of the whole, was forced to fend for himself after he became the sole survivor of a brutal massacre that wiped out his tribe. Yet, clearly undeterred by any feelings of loneliness that he probably felt, the indigenous hunter adapted to his unique circumstances, hunting, making tools, and even building a home for himself out of palm trees. The mysterious man had no name and spoke no language that anyone could understand, and had quite literally no one to confide in for most of his life. The outside world did attempt to make contact with him and would leave him supplies like weapons from time to time, though that's as far as human contact would go, as he would often flee at the mere sight of another person. The world first became aware of the tribesman's existence in 1996, when Brazilian authorities spotted signs someone was living alone in remote Tanaru indigenous territory in Rondônia state. Trackers would occasionally catch glimpses of him, noting his lean and agile shape and that he sported a bow and arrow made from bamboo, though little else. They also found he would dig deep holes in the ground and cover them with sticks, leaves, and rocks in a bid to trap animals, and would litter the grave like pits with sharpened stakes, though others appeared to be for spiritual or ritualistic reasons. It is believed he spent most of his time hunting birds, monkeys, and pigs with his trusty bow and arrow and gray corn and papaya around his hut. His heartbreaking story then came to light when the Brazilian government managed to record him in secret in 2018. The footage gave some fascinating insight into the man's life, as he was seen half naked and hacking down a tree with a homemade axe before glancing right into the camera lens and disappearing from sight forever. After decades of dodging civilization and starvation, The man eventually died of natural causes as the authorities found his body lying in a hammock outside his palm thatched shelter in August 2022. His tragic end serves as a haunting reminder of humankind's resilience and survival instincts and of the tribe's cultural heritage, which is now lost forever. It is believed his tribe was wiped out by illegal cattle ranchers sometime in the 1980s and 1990s when the Amazon became a hotspot for violent exploitation to make way for farmland. Funai, the Indigenous Affairs Agency, respected his wishes for a life of solitude and set up zones and reserves to protect him from afar. Altair Algayer, a local coordinator for Funai, said, "This man, unknown to us, even losing everything like his people in a series of cultural practices, has proved that even then, alone in the middle of the bush, it is possible to survive and resist allying with society," as per the Daily Mail. Survival International, a group of campaigns for indigenous rights, also called him the victim of genocide forgotten by most, standing as a symbol of both horrific violence and astonishing resilience. Surviving right under the noses of everyone, and it's a choice. You could say, hey, I don't want anything to do with society. I like what I'm doing right now. Sounds like that's what he did. And you can't blame him for that. With that being said, we want to go ahead and get ready to wrap up the show. We want to thank our guest, Artemaeus Treadwell, for coming on in, being awesome tonight for hours 1 and 2. We also want to thank Drew Banky after hours wrap up as always. And Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries. We also want to thank the man you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Dawes, the man that rocks us out each and every show. As he teaches us, he tells us to never say never again. Never say never again, because yes, the phenomena is real, which means anything and everything under that is possible. Remember that. If you enjoyed the show tonight, go ahead, throw your horns up, show your appreciation tonight. Thanks for tuning your frequency to Space Style Radio, where we do best. What's that you ask? We own the night. This show has been copyrighted SOR Media Ventures Limited to Space Style Radio. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I am Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe as we go off air for the night, we will be back in the same place doing the same thing at the same time. Make sure you're here. We'd love to see you back. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great week. You guys all take care. All right, we are clear. Awesome show, guys. Definitely appreciate everything. Appreciate you guys all coming tonight, doing this once again. We will continue to do this as the way that we do this right here on the After Hours Radio Show. Make sure you're here tomorrow for Dave Scott. Let me see who. I don't even know who he has in tomorrow, but let me check here. Dave should be having on, let's see, who does he have? Okay, let me see. This is tomorrow, so it looks like Lon Strickler. Lon Strickler will be here tomorrow, so make sure you guys are here for that. Actually, that's the 25th. That's next Monday. So tomorrow, it looks like he has Olaf Phillips. Olaf Phillips is tomorrow. So make sure you guys are here for that. It's going to be a lot of great people coming up after hours next week. For us, you will have Julie Olson stepping in the building, and I think it's going to be an awesome show. I think that one is definitely going to be an awesome show. Make sure you guys are here for that. Outside of that, pleasure talking to you guys tonight. You have a great rest of your night. I will see you guys then. You guys all take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with a cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Beat in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement. I wanna make greatness look complacent. Adrenaline awakened, I can taste it. We can make an impact, grab and then take it. Like a disease, bring them to their knees. Don't take for their deceit. Rage is like a wind, spread into the street. It's time to make them bleed. Cause we just want retribution. Let's go light up the darkness. Make true of an empty promise. Flip God into wicked.